So the topic of today's video is going to be on the idea of a universal basic income. And this is a subject that's popping up more and more in discussion and in the news for fairly relevant reasons. And so if you're unfamiliar with what a universal basic income is, essentially the idea is that you provide everyone in society with a livable basic income. So let's say you lived in a place where it cost $1,000 each month to get by, to pay rent, to put food on the table, and all the other costs that go along with that. Well, with a universal basic income, everyone in that society would receive $1,000 each month. The idea being that everyone would receive enough income to get by. So the reason that universal basic income is fairly relevant today is because of the significant changes that are going on in our economy right now when it comes to automation, when it comes to the advent of machines and AI that are replacing a lot of traditional jobs like truck drivers, factory workers, and all of these other things that are being replaced by machines which are more efficient and more cost effective. Sort of the idea behind a universal basic income is that it provides a sort of a backup to these individuals that are losing these traditional jobs as they're being replaced by machines. And so the purpose of this video is I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of a universal basic income, the drawbacks, and then sort of where I stand on it today and in the future. So starting off with the benefits, looking at a universal basic income, as I've sort of alluded to already, it provides a fallback for these people that are losing these traditional jobs, and it allows them to take on creative and entrepreneurial endeavors they wouldn't necessarily have taken on because they needed to put food on the table, because they needed to pay rent. So it allows people to start businesses, to become artisans, craftsmen, whatever they would have done had they not needed to worry about money. And that's sort of one of the main benefits that's hoped to be a result of a universal basic income, that people will become entrepreneurial, that people will start businesses, do something creative. The second benefit is that it replaces a lot of the pre-existing social benefits like disability, welfare, unemployment. When you have a universal basic income that provides everyone with enough money to survive, you don't really have to worry about those other programs because you have something in place already. So it sort of simplifies all of those. And the third benefit is that it would likely increase economic activity in the sense of consumerism. If you've ever heard of something called trickle-down economics, that was the idea that if you give rich people tax breaks, they would take that money that they save on taxes and spend it. Complete failure. Why? Well, rich people like to hoard money. It's a way that, typically wealth is a way that they attribute success. So the more wealth you have, the more successful you are. It's sort of a competitive aspect. So a lot of wealthy people don't actually spend their money. They hoard it. On the opposite end, when you have poor to middle income individuals, they spend money. They don't really save a lot, typically. So if you give them basic income, if you provide them with sort of a redistribution of wealth, they're going to spend that. They're going to be consumers. They're going to go out and buy things. And that will stimulate the economy. Trickle-down economics makes a lot more sense. There's a lot more realistic benefits to consumerism. Those are sort of the three main benefits that you can see with universal basic income. Looking at the drawbacks, obviously, one of the first ones is that people will take advantage of the system. Without question, that's going to happen, and you already look at programs like disability and welfare. People do take advantage of these programs. They don't necessarily want to go out and work. They want to have sort of a free lunch, and you will see that with universal basic income. There are going to be people that take the basic income and say, I don't need a job, I don't need to worry about it, I don't need to do anything creative, I don't need to start a business. Why? I have enough income. There are 100% going to be people that do that, and that is going to be a significant issue with the program. And I'm actually going to touch on that a lot more when I talk sort of about my viewpoints on it. And then the second really big issue with universal basic income is it's going to be expensive. You're going to have to tax people to pay for that program. And sort of an idea that's talked about a lot is that you should tax the robots that replace traditional jobs. So if a robot replaces someone in a factory, you would tax that factory in return for the individual who's losing their job. And that honestly does make sense, and I agree with that as a way to go about it. You're still going to have to tax people too. It is going to be, a universal income, say in the United States, would be incredibly expensive. And that money has to come from somewhere. So you're going to have to do wealth redistribution, and that is a huge issue. So that's sort of the major drawbacks, major benefits. Where do I stand on it? Well, personally, I think universal basic income, it has potential, but not today. It has potential in the future if the right steps are taken to sort of lead up to it. And so, two major issues with me or my views on it is talking about the people that are going to take advantage of the system. That is a very real issue. And the sort of where I stand on that is, right now, there are a lot of jobs that are being replaced by machines, but there still are a tremendous amount of jobs that are performed by humans, and that likely will be the case for a while. My personal view on a personal basic income is that it really isn't something that should be undertaken until the vast majority of jobs have been replaced by machines, by AI, by robots. Once most traditional jobs are gone, it kind of makes sense. Sort of a reality, something you have to do. But up until that point, it doesn't really make sense. Because having to go out and make money to put food on the table, to pay rent, that is a hugely motivating factor. Let's say that you're working in a factory and the factory shuts down because the business wasn't viable. You get laid off. Well, there's tremendous motivation to go find another job, to go do something else, because you need food. You need to pay rent. There's tremendous motivation there. When you have a universal basic income, that motivation kind of goes out the window. If you lose your job, you say, I can wait 3 months. Maybe just take some time off, not do anything. And it leaves the door open for, in effect, laziness, for people not being motivated, not being pushed to go make it, to go work. And so that, I think, is a tremendous issue that is prevalent there. And until the vast majority of traditional jobs have been replaced by AI, I don't think it makes sense to have a universal basic income. The second huge issue, and this is even bigger than the first, that I see is that our educational systems are not designed to support a universal basic income. The issue I see is that when you look at what's required to be an entrepreneur, to start your own business, to sort of do things along those lines, you need financial skills, accounting skills, you need to be creative, you need to be able to self-learn, and those are not the kind of things that are currently really being taught in schools. When you look at the educational system, it's designed to prepare people for traditional jobs. It's designed to prepare people to work in factories, to do all of these jobs that are currently disappearing. And so you really need to realign the educational system to support entrepreneurial skills, to prepare people to be entrepreneurs if you want to have a universal basic income. Because it's great, and if it actually worked where everyone who was on a universal basic income became an entrepreneur, who started their own businesses, that would be fantastic. But the reality is most people right now don't have the skills to do that, because school is not preparing them for it. So those are the two major issues I see personally. I would actually love to hear your opinions on this, because it is a fairly divided issue, and there's definitely isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer. This is my opinion, and I think it is fairly valid, and I think it does have potential in the future if the educational system is changed, and as more and more jobs start to disappear, traditional jobs, I think it definitely is viable, but it's not viable yet. It doesn't make sense yet. And so that's my opinion. As always, if you like the video, I very much appreciate a like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. And as always, have a great day.